Assalamualaikum. My name is Nurina Sohaila and we are from Group C. And today our group will be presenting the slide on consumer behavior from the Islamic perspective. So let's start with a little bit of introduction. With a population increase of more than 235% in the last 50 years, Islam seems to be the world's second largest religion and one of the fastest growing religions. Islam is a full way of life that governs and limits Muslim consumer behavior in order for Muslims to obtain happiness and contentment in this life and the next life. When we talk about consumption is a natural part of human economic behavior, and it also can define as everyone's habits of using and utilizing things and services to meet their basic necessity. Muslim consumer perspective are governed by Islamic consumer behavior guidelines, which includes all the lawful halal acts, with the exception of those prohibited by the Holy Quran.
For the analysis part, Islamic view on consumer behavior greatly differs from the conventional view of it when looked at its principles and postulates. Conventional economics is fueled by self-interest to earn wealth for their own status. The Enlightenment movement focused on separating religious and ethical values from economics, causing the rich not to be obliged to help the needy, increasing the income gap. Dr. Zerka was of the opinion that traditional economics cannot be applicable to analyze a Muslim consumer. Theory of consumer behavior focuses on the law of diminishing marginal utility as the main principle of Western economics is freedom and material goods. In Islam, it's quite different as it depends on Allah's pleasure on how a person spends their income. Donating money instead of buying luxurious items will please Allah more even if it's not considered as maximizing utility. Consumption should be in moderation, it should be in the middle road between godly and extravagant. An Islamic economic molds a person to uphold the spiritual values, israf and mudarat.
Now, let's talk about the research methodology. A lot of scholars use the literature study method in discussing the issue of consumer behavior from Islamic perspective. The research was done by studying the related existing literature across time. This means that these scholars work on secondary data. However, conventional approaches cannot be used in defining and understanding consumer behavior in Islamic perspective. This is due to the concept of need, which affects well-being that differs from the concept of utility. However, some scholars use quantitative study to understand the concept of consumer behavior in Islamic perspective, especially in a locality basis.
Next, I will be explaining about the Islamic consumer behavior and conventional consumer behavior. The first thing is, Muslims consumer buy things based on the principle that was stated in Al-Quran and As-Sunnah. The principles that influence Muslim behavior is priority. They should buy things according to their needs to avoid having extravagant behavior. The next principle that influences Muslim behavior is adherence to halal and haram norms. Muslims should buy halal and permitted goods and services and avoid buying things that are forbidden in Islam. Besides that, the principle of moderation also influences Muslims in their intake. Last but not least, quality consumption also influences Muslims to buy the things to maximize their self-satisfaction and Allah's pleasure. In conventional perspective, decision-making can be defined as an individual's ability to satisfy various wants in exchange for the goods and services given. Other than that, in conventional economics, utility refers to a product or service capacity to fulfill the demand of customers. Consumers are considered rational when they spend their money in a way that maximizes material utility and satisfaction. Lastly, in traditional consumerism, the idea of success in human life is determined by the amount of money you have. The more property you have, the more successful you are seen to be.
Professor Muhammad Anazarka has been alert to an issue not only because of its importance in the field of applied economics, but also because it is expected to be one of the most pressing concerns for economists. Furthermore, there is currently little discussion of Islamic consumer behaviour, particularly in empirical research. To begin with, Dr. Zaka believes that traditional economic theories of consumer behaviour are no longer directly applicable to the Muslim consumer. In his perspective, the existing consumer theory needs to be modified to meet the needs of Muslim consumers. In addition, Zarka stated that in order to establish of behavior theory of Muslim consumer, Islamic intention and law should not be viewed as limitation. According to him, Islamic intention and rule must be included into the legal structure. He also emphasized that his reward in the hereafter is contingent on his consumer behavior throughout his lifetime. However, because the relationship is so complicated, he noted it is difficult to show the link between his Muslim behavior in his life and the reward he will receive in the hereafter. Professor Dr. Zarka went on to say that Islamic Sharia aims to train the utility function of the customer. He emphasized that mainstream economic theories view the utility function to be external and unique to the individual. He explained that the approach in Sharia is different. Some aspects of the human utility function, in his opinion, are still acceptable in Islam and should not be removed. He proposed that the present economic parts be adjusted to guarantee that they are Sharia compliant. Lastly, Dr. Zaka brought up the point that the difference between the preference function and the utility function should be examined in Sharia. It is because classical economists consider that in order to fulfill customer behavior, the utility function had to be used. However, it is different from a Sharia perspective. According to him, the Sharia emphasized that the preference function may or may not be the same as the genie utility function. Furthermore, in Sharia, true utility function urges you to create your choice function or to become equal to your actual utility function.
For the conclusion, we can conclude that Islamic teachings on consumption and customer behavior refer to many different ideas and aspects of human behavior that are beyond the theoretical framework and the methodology of conventional economics. The study also proposed a hypothesis based on needs rather than wants to solve the problem. Understanding consumer behavior in all of its aspects is essential. Using this theory, the studies not only explain the concepts such as waste in consumption, but also demonstrate about behavior norms in the society. That's all from us. Thank you.